Adam, are we all set?
Good evening and welcome to the June 8th, 2020 meeting of the Goffstown Select Board. This meeting is being conducted remotely via the WebEx platform. Public access is available via telephone. There will be more instructions on that shortly. I'd like to start with a Pledge of Allegiance. I'll recite the pledge. If you'd like to join me, feel free.
Excuse me, Collis.
Yep.
We're not quite on yet, TV.
Oh, we're not?
There it goes. Now you are.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay, just to remind members.
Big delay.
Okay, I'll restart then. Okay, good evening and welcome to the June 8th, 2020 Select Board meeting for the town of Goffstown. This meeting is being conducted remotely via the WebEx platform. Public access will be available via telephone. There'll be more instructions on that briefly. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll start. You can join me if you'd like. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First thing I want to do is ask if there's any public comment at this time. There will be a second opportunity for public comment, probably somewhere around between 7 and 7:30. But is there anyone out there, Derek, that you see who would like to comment at this point?
Mr. Chairman, right now there is nobody that has called in on the telephone line. I just ask that you go through the e-meeting checklist, because that does provide the telephone number to anyone who might be watching.
Yep, let me get to that. So this is the right to know checklist for these remote meetings. As chair of the Goffstown Select Board, due to the COVID-19 outbreak and in accordance with Governor Sununu's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are doing several things. A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. The town is utilizing the WebEx platform for this electronic meeting. The public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following telephone number: area code 603-766-5646, and using the participant code 785-645, followed by the pound sign. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. The town previously gave notice to the public of how to access the meeting using the available telephone number with the posted agenda. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has a problem with telephone access, please call 603-384-3624 for assistance. And D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at that time. Please note that during this meeting, all votes taken will be done by roll call vote. And we'll start the meeting by taking a roll call of attendance. I'll ask for each member of the select board to identify themselves and affirm that there is no one else with them in the meeting or in the room where they're watching this meeting. Again, I'm Collis Adams. I'm chair of the select board. There is no one in the room with me. Vice Chairman Boyer? Kelly?
Kelly Boyer, nobody in the room with me.
Thank you. Selectman Georgantis? Peter? Peter?
Sorry about that. Yeah, Pete Georgiantis, nobody in the room with me.
Thanks, Peter. Mark? Mark? You're up, Mark. You there?
How about now?
Yep. Anyone with you? Mark?
By myself, I'm by myself.
Okay, thank you. And Chat?
Chet Bowen, and I'm the only one in the room.
Thank you. All right, so let's get to the agenda. So I'll ask you at this point for the first public comment opportunity. Derek, is there anyone there now for public comment that you can see?
No, Mr. Chairman, no one has called in.
Okay. Next item of business is the acceptance and correction of the minutes from May 18th, 2020. They're public and non-public minutes from that meeting.
I'll make the motion that we accept the minutes from 5/18/2020, public and non-public.
Thank you. Motion made by Mark,
Second,
second by Peter. I'll take the roll. I vote yes. Kelly? Kelly, your vote on the minutes? Kelly? Kelly, can you hear us? Are you muted? We'll come back to Peter,
yes.
Mark,
Yes,
and Chet.
Yes.
Kelly, are you there now? All right, well, I'm going to consider the motion passed 4-0.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you now, Kelly. Thank you.
Sorry, my computer wouldn't let me unmute.
Okay.
I did actually have a correction. Sorry
Okay.
about being late. Hold on just a moment. There were a few sections where it said Finance Director Boyer. So I'd like to have that corrected.
Certainly.
Basora.
Anything else, Kelly?
Nope, that was it.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I already heard the vote. It was 5-0 in favor of the motion, so the minutes have passed and are accepted.
As corrected.
As corrected.
Yep, thank
As
you.
corrected.
Let's see, are there any announcements at this time? Did I see one, Derek?
Yes.
Yes,
Chad
Wallace Road.
Yep. So I do have an announcement for a traffic alert on Wallace Road construction on June 9th, 2020, which is tomorrow. This is requested by the Public Works. The Goffstown Department of Public Works will be replacing a road culvert crossing on Tuesday, June 9th. That's tomorrow. Wallace Road between Shirley Road and Addison Road will be closed for this replacement. All traffic will be detoured around the work zone using Addison, Goldfinch, Eagles Nest, and Shirley Hill. Delays should be expected. Please note Shirley Hill and Wallace Road will not be closed at the same time. Shirley Hill will remain open during the Wallace Road work. Please contact the Goffstown Public Works at 497-3617 with any questions. Thank you for your patience during this culvert replacement work. Any other board members have announcements they'd like to share? No, seeing none? We'll move along. We have a couple of appointments tonight, one at 6:10. We have a public hearing at 6:30, and then we have another appointment at 6:45. What time is it now? It is 6:09. It's close enough. We're going to go to our 6:10 appointment. That's with David Pierce. David, I think you're on the line, aren't you? Oh, yeah, I see you. David, would you like to talk about your request for the appointment? Share some information with the board and those who may be watching.
Okay, am I on?
Yes.
Thank you for putting me on the agenda. I was before the board almost exactly a year ago for the exact same question. I'm here this evening. At that time and tonight, I'd like to, I'm announcing that there's an opportunity for the Friends of the Rail Trail to apply for a 2021 recreational trails program grant. My intention is to submit for that grant to complete the section that I show on a view graph that Derek has as sections 6 and 7. Those are the ones within the county complex. Thank you, Derek. I see it on my screen now.
Any second?
My grant application, yes, that shows section 6 and 7 are add up to be 1/2 of a mile from Danish Park Road to Henry Bridge Road. A year ago, I asked the Trails Bureau to give me a grant for this project, and unfortunately, it was denied, and we're having a year without any significant project. In reapplying to do the exact same area, I'm changing the scope of the work a little bit so that perhaps it'll be more favorable in the rating of the evaluation. Derek, if that could be lowered slightly, that's fine. Thank you. Last year, the board allowed Public Works to do that second task on the left, which was haul, spread, and compact nip pack material. The first task I would have contracted out, and the last task I would have contracted out, dealing with loam and hydro seeding. Well, if I put in the exact same application, why would I expect a different outcome? I want to make this more favorable this year. I had two thoughts about this. In a previous session, one of the board members mentioned grading of this exact same section to remove some of the washboard effects of the erosion. And I discussed this with the Director of Public Works. He indicated that I could add that task to the role played by Public Works because essentially it is the labor of a grader operator, and it would have the least impact on other labor operations performed by that department. The last task of loam and seeding is more labor intensive, and so I chose to keep that as a private contract run by the Friends of the Rail Trail. What that allowed me to do is that the amount of money I'm asking for the grant changes from 37,000 down to a little over 16,000. It puts me in a much more favorable position that the grant will be approved and we can actually do a half-mile project next summer in 2021. So that's my request before you this evening. If the board would allow Public Works to participate in a half-mile project next summer. The Friends of the Rail Trail will ultimately use the $16,000 to run 4 contracts. One for the purchase of nip pack, a rental of a roller if Public Works wants that, doesn't have that capability, I'm willing to rent it. And I will contract for loaming and hydro seeding. If any of my contracts have a cost overrun and the grant is not sufficient, my organization will totally cover any cost overrun. So essentially, I'm asking for the Public Works soft match of what would, when you add up the amortization of equipment and the labor, in my grant application, it adds up to $22,000 of a soft match. So that's my question before the board this evening. Would you allow Public Works to participate in this project?
David, thank you for the overview. Derek, is Adam on? I don't see him. Is that,
Yes, he is.
he is?
folks. I didn't want to steal David's thunder with my photo here.
Don't worry.
I guess my first question is this something that DPW can take on without affecting other projects and other work that's already scheduled to be done?
A little bit of a loaded question, I guess. Of course, for the couple days that we'd be impacted, that's something else that a few staff members wouldn't be able to get done. I'm a lot more comfortable with this being next year, not this year. I'd feel the sweat dripping off my forehead if you were asking me to try to get this done here this summer. But I think it's always good to have one of these types of projects a year to kind of remain out in the community and help out the Friends. Certainly they've done a lot for the town, so I think it'd be an important one to do if they were able to get the grant. My only real request might be on the rough grading, if that could be flexible enough, or maybe Mr. Pierce could write the grant request to allow potentially renting a small piece of grading equipment there in case it looks like our grader might just be too big for the job in any of those little sections.
David?
Yes, I'm willing to put an additional contract on my grant application, and I'll coordinate with you tomorrow as to the cost of what that contract might be. All of the tasks that would be performed by Public Works need not be continuous, one day after the other. It could be one day of work this week, one day next week. It's very flexible. The only one constraint I have, if I were to rent a vibratory 5-ton roller, it's $900 for a week. But if there was some emergency came up and you needed that roller to be extended, once again, that's a cost overrun, and I'm willing to bear any cost overrun.
Hollis, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
I have a few questions, actually. First of all,
Where's yours?
the grubbing, vegetation, rough grading. It says town equipment and labor. You don't have a time frame attached to that. So is that something that, whereas if you go down below, you say 3 trucks, excavator, Bobcat, 3 days.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, in my grant application, I specify that that's 1 day of grubbing out the vegetation that's on the mainly on the shoulders, and then 1 day for the fine grading. Once again, that's a grader operator. Part of the grubbing is actually picking up all the remains of roots and stumps and tossing them into a truck. If my volunteers could be allowed to work side by side with public workers, we'd be willing to assist in that task, which would be a day long.
So again, going to my question, you don't have a dollar value assigned to that. Is that, you must have figured something in order to get to the $22,200 soft match.
David? I think Peter's asking about a dollar amount.
It appears that Mr. Pierce fell off. He's got some bandwidth, so it might just be a moment till he gets back on.
Okay. Anybody have questions for Adam, or any concerns or comments they want to share with board members while we got a minute here? Peter, we'll get back to you as soon as David comes
Well,
back.
I still have more questions for David. And then if you want to ask Adam, is that a good idea to commit ourselves to looking at least 3 days? It looks like now it's going to be either 4 or 5 days, actually. When you figure the day of grubbing vegetation, and then another day of rough grading, and then 3 trucks, an excavator, and a Bobcat for 3 days. We're actually looking at 5 days, taking time out of the town. And if it's, I don't know how many people, but if you say it's just 2 people or 3 people, 3 trucks, you're going to need 3 people. An excavator, Bobcat, 2 more people. That's 5 people. That's that 1 day for 3 days. That's 15 days. And then you got at least 2 or 3 more days on the other thing. We're talking over a week of personnel working on that project. Would that be pretty close, Adam?
I think you're pretty close. That's kind of what I was, back of the napkin myself. If there is some concern, I think the place we could probably most cost efficiently kind of trim that down would be on the trucking end, whether or not it's Askin Neville or maybe Uncanonic or somebody else that might have a truck or driver available. We could chip away at some of that number too. That would be the tough day, I think, when we're going to have multiple trucks with a piece of equipment to load them. That's 3, 4, maybe 5 people on those days, those 3 days. So we can narrow that number down if there's a concern. That'd be where I would target.
I just don't want to underestimate, that's all. If the project's more than that, it's more than that.
Right. We certainly don't want to boondoggle.
Yep, you still got the floor, Peter. You have other questions or?
Not unless
Concern?
David's here. I'm interested to know, on all of these deals, there's always a cash match. What do they do for fundraising? Friends of the Goffstown Realtor, because I don't really see anything going on, but maybe there's something behind the lines that I don't know about. Maybe somebody else has that information.
Dave, can you speak to that? I think I saw him come back. No, maybe not.
He's still off. I'm trying to get him to call in.
Okay.
Does anybody have any idea where that comes from, where that cash match comes from? Have you seen any fundraising from them?
I personally have not.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean it's not happening. We really need to have David speak to that.
Okay.
Okay, we got a little quiet time. Anybody else? Any other board members with questions or comments or concerns? All right, Derek, seems like we need to get some sort of a feel from David as to where their match is coming from.
Okay, we have a little bit of time, and I think we can reconnect with him when he comes back on. I did just call his telephone, and he did not pick up, and I resent him the meeting information as well as the call-in information so that he can call in either to the WebEx or to the conference line here at Town Hall. So if it's okay, maybe just put this on the table for a moment.
Why don't we do that? What time is it? It's 6:23. So we've got a little bit of time. Why don't we do some of the administrators report there?
Okay, thank you very much. So if you go to tab 9, you'll see the committee meeting schedule. Let's see, I just want to make sure I see a lot of people. Oh, I see Mr. Pierce is coming back on. Oh,
There it is, it's there.
David's back if you'd like to finish up with that item.
So David, the question was, where's your match coming from? What have you been doing for fundraising? Is that right, Peter? That was Peter's
Well, that was
question.
one of them, and I also talked with Adam about the number of hours, actually. I wouldn't want to keep David out of the loop of things we talk behind his back, but you can always review the meeting if he wants to see what we said about that. But then I had a question, David, was you guys always come up with a cash match. What do you guys do for fundraising?
Our basic fundraising is through membership in our organizations. We consistently have 30 to 35 people every year making donations through membership fees. But more significantly, we have perhaps 4 organizations that contribute on the order of between $1,000 and $2,500. We're generally good for a $10,000 project out of our checkbook each year. That's my basic revenue in our organization is $10,000 a year. For example, in 2018, we funded $9,000 against a project, and in 2019, we funded another $9,000 against a contract as a project.
Okay, and then you have the 22,200 is a soft match. It's really not a soft match. That's actually what it's going to cost at least to do that project from the town side. So I'm not, you call it a soft match is because that was the way you call it on the grant?
Correct, Peter. In the application for the grant, I have to document the soft matches, whether they be labor and equipment or monetary. In this case, the contribution of the labor and the equipment adds up to $22,000. My, based on the advice of the finance office, I'm using FEMA cost of the amortization of the equipment. And your finance office provides me the average benefit wages of the various skills of laborers Public Works would commit to this project, whether they be a truck driver, equipment operator, or a laborer.
All right, thanks for the info. I'm good, Collis.
Okay, thanks. Any other members of the board have questions for David on this item? So Derek, I think what we're looking for is the board.
Collis, I'd like to make a motion that
Thank you.
allows the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail to proceed with a grant application. I think that's what David's looking for.
That's what he's looking for. Yep. Our support for the submission of a grant application. Motion by Peter, second by Kelly. Any discussion on the motion? I'll call the roll. I vote yay. Kelly,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes,
and Chet.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0-0.
Thank the board, and I hope to be back before the board in November with good news that the grant has been awarded.
Okay. Yep, you're welcome, David. Thanks for participating tonight. So we have a 6:30 public hearing. We're a couple of minutes early. Derek, are there a couple things on your report we can knock off real quick? I don't want to start the public hearing before the assigned time.
Yes, I can get into a few quick ones.
Yeah.
So at tab 9A, you have your committee meeting schedule for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night at 6 PM, the Sewer Commission is meeting. I believe that is Selectman Bowen that covers
Yep.
them.
I'll be there.
Okay. On Thursday at 7 PM, the Planning Board is meeting.
Yep, I'll be there.
Next week, there's a little bit of change in the date of the meeting, but the Parks and Rec Committee is meeting Tuesday. They normally meet Wednesdays. We're meeting Tuesday of next week at 7 PM.
Yeah, I'll be there.
On Wednesday at 6:30 PM, the library trustees have a meeting.
I'll be there.
And then Thursday at 7 PM, CIP.
I'll be at that one too.
Thank you. And I think I can be able to squeeze the consent agenda in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Next page, we have employee status reports for lieutenant, paramedic, pay change, and also a stipend per the sidebar agreement that was signed at your last meeting. You have firefighter AEMT merit increase, and then a call firefighter discharge. You have rights to inter at Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 3, Lot 84. You also have West Lawn expansion, Section W1, Lot 22. You have the public landowner permission form for the recreational trails program grant that was presented to you a few moments ago, for the Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail. And then you also have a second-hand dealers and pawnbrokers license. This is number 1 for Powden's Jewelry. This is a renewal they do every spring.
Thank you, Derek. Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Peter. Motion by Peter, a second by
Second.
yep,
Chet. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you. Peter,
Yes.
Mark,
yes,
and Chet.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0-0. Are we at 6:30?
Yes, sir.
We are at 6:30. Okay, let's see, where are we at? We're at our public hearing.
It's on tab number 6.
Yep, thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing under RSA 72:74. The pilot program, that's an acronym that stands for Payment in Lieu of Taxes agreement. This is for a solar array with New England Solar Garden. This is located at Gentle Slopes off Route 114 and Shirley Hill Road, tax map 3, lots 47-1, 47-2, 47-3, 47-4, 47-5, 47-6, 47-7, 47-8, 47-9, and 47-10. Eric, is somebody from Gentle Slopes with us tonight?
Yes, Mr. Andrew Keller from New England Solar Garden is here this evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Keller.
Good evening, everybody.
Would you like to say a few words?
Again, just appreciate the board's time. We had a kind of introductory call last month, which I think was well received. I think a lot of questions were answered. I was able to work with Derek and the assessor just to get the actual pilot agreement organized and updated based on the kind of wishes of the board's discussion last month. That has been reviewed. I think there was a couple of minor edits that we went back and forth on. And we've prepared it for, depending on the outcome of this evening's public meeting, we would ask for the board's consideration to sign that agreement and allow us to continue moving down the path. We have started to do some of the initial pre-construction work, like cutting some trees and starting to get ready for full construction probably later this summer or early fall. So this is a critical item to get done for us so we can keep things moving forward. So I think that's about all we have for tonight. So looking forward to answering any questions the board or the public has about the pilot agreement.
Thank you. I just want to note before we get there that I want to note that notice of this public hearing was published on May 29th, 2020 on page B8 of the Union Leader and is also posted at the town hall and on the town website. Are there any questions from board members regarding the proposal? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to open the public hearing to accept public comment. Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment?
Mr. Chairman, we do have one person on the line. I'm going to unmute their telephone. If you wish to address the board, please state your name and then provide comment to the board.
Good evening. Who do we have with us?
Caller ending in 4719, do you wish to address the board on the public comment for this public hearing?
Oh, thank you. I didn't realize you were making it the speed. Actually, I'm just calling to listen. I'm very interested in the proceedings in the project. I actually work for a solar company based in New Hampshire called NR Solar, and so actually, I don't have any other specific questions or comments at this time, but thank you for allowing me to speak.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, Derek, could we just get his name and address for the record, please?
Oh, yes, just for the record, could you provide your name, please?
Yes, my name is Scott Kavanaugh. I live in Litchfield, New Hampshire.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we do have one other person on the line.
Okay.
Could you provide your name, please? I have, for the telephone ending 9320, do you wish to address the board for the public hearing on the payment in lieu of taxes?
No, I have a question about the Gentle Slopes solar array.
This is the public hearing for the payment in lieu of taxes agreement for the Gentle Slope solar array. So this would be your opportunity, if you could identify yourself and provide an address, then you can ask your question or make your comment.
Sure, thank you. Lisa Webb, I'm at 46 Magnolia Drive off of Shirley Hill. Do you have a map to show where this the solar arrays are planned on Shirley Hill? It's a pretty large road.
Andrew, could you, if it's all right with the chair, maybe Andrew could describe, or I could take a shot at it, Mr. Chairman. What's your preference?
Yeah, let me have Andrew describe it. That'd be good.
Okay, no problem. So the location of where the solar panels will be going is if you're coming down Route 114 up towards the set of lights, as you cross underneath the utility transmission lines, the big, huge lines that cross over the road. If you were to look up to the left, they will be up to that part of the array, kind of to the southern part of the array is where the majority of the solar panels will be located.
So you're coming up Route 114 towards 114A from Bedford,
Correct.
and then you cross under the power lines. You're talking about the lots. They're on the left-hand side heading up towards Pinardville area.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And this is going to just be, is this for commercial use? Is it for the residential use in this area? It's a large residential area.
Well, it's a solar array that's going to feed into the power grid. And Andrew, I'll let you just address the specific details.
Yeah, I can speak to the program itself is under the state statute, which is called the Group Net Metering Program. So again, the intent of this project is it's what we consider a community solar project. So the power that is produced from the project does get shared with different what we call group members. That can be anybody in the state of New Hampshire that is within Eversource's utility service area. We typically do not, on this project, we don't typically offer to residential customers. Some of our other ones we do. This project is, at this point, because it's fully permitted, all of the offtake has already been subscribed to. It's one of the steps we do in the earlier stages of the process to make sure we can get our approvals. So it could be, a local business, it could be a local school or other town, for example, that could benefit from a discounted rate for their power. So it is a community-based program. This has already gone through the planning board process, so it's taking care of all of its planning and zoning requirements. It's fully approved to start construction. And again, this is just a conversation related to the taxation of the solar panels themselves.
Right, thank you for all this information. This has already gone through that planning process, so you can contact our planning and zoning office, and they can direct you to where the maps are and various information relative to the project itself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is that?
No further questions.
Okay, well, thank you for participating. Appreciate it. Anyone else, Derek, that you see on the line, or anyone else? Who would like to make
Those are
comments?
the only two individuals that called in for public comment.
All right. Well, since we don't have any other public comment, I'm going to close the public hearing on this matter. And I think we're ready to take a vote, are we not, Derek?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask a quick question?
Yes, Kelly, sure.
Thank you. I see in the proposal that we just got that was updated that it does say 20-year. I just want to confirm that this is the final proposal based on our last conversation.
Yes, this is the based off the board's discussion on May 18th. It was the pleasure of the board at that time to do a 20-year agreement for $4,500 per megawatt, and it's a 2 megawatt project.
Is that it? That good, Kelly? You got any other questions or comments?
I think Vice Chair Boyd. Oh, nope, she's back.
Kelly, you all set? Do you have other comments or concerns? No?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. So we're prepared to entertain a motion on this.
I'll make the motion that we approve the payment in lieu of tax agreement with Gentle Slopes, New England Solar Garden located at Gentle Slopes.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
And a second by Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Chet?
Yes.
The motion passes 5-0-0. Thank you. Next, I see an appointment at 6:45. What time is it? We're a little early for that appointment. Unless the,
Mr. Chairman, Jennifer LeBlanc is on the WebEx call. I'll just say thank you to Mr. Keller of New England Solar Garden for providing the information for this evening.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your help. Have a great night.
You too.
But Jennifer LeBlanc, representing 32 Main Street, is on the call.
Is tab 7.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The floor is yours.
Excuse me?
The floor is yours. This is a request for relief. Is that correct, under 79E, the community?
79E. Yes, this is correct.
Okay. Could you explain what your project, what you're looking for, what the improvements are, where the property is, folks that are listening?
Property that we just recently purchased is on 32 Main Street. It is the one that sits right on the bridge. It was in disrepair. The prior owners did little to maintain the property. Our plans are to rehab the exterior. We want to replace all the windows, update the siding on it, put an eyebrow over the front of it to match the building that appears to be attached to us. We're working on making sure that all the wiring is up to code in the building, and that all the mechanicals are in fully functioning condition.
And the building currently has some businesses in it now at the ground floor, correct?
Yes, there's 3 businesses on the first floor, and there's 2 residential tenants on the second floor.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. Are there questions or comments?
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, go ahead, Peter, please.
Okay, so I've noticed that the 79E is a great program. And it does help entice people to improve a piece of property. And if we know what the piece of property right next to the bridge, right on the bridge, there's 2 pieces there. Larry Brown owns one, and he did a bunch of improvements to his. And then the building next to it, between Larry Brown's and the river, was in a state of disrepair. And if anybody's gone by there, they have already put the brow on. They've done the siding. Looks like they're getting ready to do windows. This is the type of thing that 79E sponsors, and I'd be fully in support of continuing that program. This is a good project, and that was a piece of property that needed some renovations.
Yeah, I agree with you, Peter. 79E has been used for a number of businesses down on Main Street, and it's really helped to improve certainly the character of our downtown area, so I fully support it as well. Are there other members of the board who'd like to comment?
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question, please?
Oh, Kelly.
Thank you. Jennifer, thank you for the information. The first question I have is the question on the application that asks if the building is listed on or eligible for the State Register of Historic Places. Was not answered. Do you happen to know the answer to that question?
I honestly do not know that answer.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is on the estimates. Are these actual estimates from a contractor or service provider, or are they just?
These are rough estimates based on, my husband and I actually have a construction company. We have partners in this building. We own a construction company, so we know the averages of what things cost to update, maintain, and repair, replace. So we're basing these estimates off of history the last 30 years of being in business.
Okay, so will you be doing some of the renovations yourself then with your contracting company?
Yeah, we're doing most of the renovations ourselves. Some of them we've been subcontracted out. We have a few local contractors that we're bringing in to do some of the work. We're trying to keep most of the stuff local.
Other questions from board members? Kelly, did you say yes?
No, I said thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on the board? What do we need to take for action tonight?
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the 79E.
Can I interrupt for a moment, please?
Go right ahead.
Sorry, Selectman Georgianis. 79E does require a public hearing.
Okay, so we're just,
So, we have passed the application through the assessor's office, the building inspector, and planning, and they've reviewed and we've provided those comments back to the applicant. I would propose that we schedule the required public hearing for the next meeting on June 22nd. I'll look at the schedule, probably around 6:30 as well, like we did this evening for the solar array. And then we would bring the decision matrix, and I will work with the applicant on the acceptable covenants. This applicant or these husband and wife did the Hall TV building that was Brown's Emporium, as well as it's going to be a barber shop, so they are aware of the covenants. So I will work with them to bring those for the public hearing on the 22nd.
okay, so looking for a motion to,
So going back to my motion, I would approve this project to go forward to the public hearing.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
and second by Chet, I believe it was.
Yes.
Any discussion on the motion? Motion is to move forward with scheduling a public hearing on June 22nd. I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes?
Mark?
Yes.
And Chet?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0-0. Next on the agenda is the fire chief.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. LeBlanc. I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. You all have a nice evening.
Thank you, you too.
Yep, bye.
Chief Allard?
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
We're at tab 8, folks.
So I'm here.
It's yours.
Thank you, sir. So I'm here tonight to give the board a final update on our 26-week trial period for a 24/7 schedule change for the fire department. Before I start, I really just wanted to take a minute to thank the entire board for allowing this work group to get back together and this project to take place. As we've gone through this project, I've found notes dating back 40 years of discussions on 24/7. So thank you all very much for letting this happen. It's certainly been successful, which I'll talk about. I'll just give, if anyone's watching, I'll just give them a little bit of background on the committee itself, which I gave an update about a month ago. But for those who aren't familiar, back in July of 2019, the board approved the work group to get back together. The work group consisted of Selectman Boyer, the town administrator, our members of our call fire department, professional firefighters of Goffstown, as well as myself. And we spent several months putting together a plan to transition from days only for our full-time people to a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week schedule. That program started officially on December 16th. And inside your packet this evening, there's a whole bunch of data that we've been tracking throughout that, which I'll just highlight some of those things for the members of the public. So in the packet, you'll find it's kind of broken into a couple sections. It shows just some positive feedback we've received from the public via social media and/or letters received to Town Hall or to myself. You'll see a month-by-month staffing level information. So if the board remembers, prior to making this transition, some nights in town, we only had 2 people working for the fire department to cover the entire community. Today, we've had 6 members, so 3 at each station. There have been some nights where we're in a learning curve, so scheduling-wise, we've had some learning issues that we've fixed at this point. So we've gone from 2 people a night to 6 people. And I'm sure I know I've had this discussion with the board some nights. I was the only paramedic available to respond to emergencies. So this is a huge change. Today, 100% of the time, we have paramedics on every day of the week, 24 hours, 7 days a week. That's a huge benefit to the community. You'll see in your packets also we talked about a month ago about the reduction of the response times. So depending on the month, it's anywhere from 9% reduction to a 22% reduction. And then lastly, we've tried to do a really good job of keeping open lines of communication with the staff and make sure our employee satisfaction has increased. And you'll see I've met with numerous individuals consistently, almost on a daily basis. We've done several surveys internally. And the last survey we did with some of the published results in your packet this evening, I'll just touch on a couple of those. So 90% of the response that came back from our employees are extremely satisfied with the schedule change. 94% have seen an improvement in their home lives. So prior to this, there was very few weekends our firefighters got to spend with their families. Since the transition, that's definitely improved. The one section I'm probably most proud of is our part-time call members and full-time are really one team now. That has certainly improved through this transition. And then they have a lot of face-to-face communication. And then just a couple last points before I'll entertain any questions. We've been able to do this with operating within our budget that was approved by the town. Our employee retention has never been better. Since this has happened, we have not had any people leave. As a matter of fact, some of the newer employees that we have turned down jobs elsewhere to come to Goffstown. And lastly, keeping the budget in mind, there are times where we monitor our manpower levels, and you actually have 2 paramedics on staff now in command staff roles. So there are times where we actually will take those roles and go on calls with people as needed. So I'll certainly entertain any questions or need any clarification to the board.
Thank you for that overview, Chief Allard. Board members have questions for Chief Allard?
Peter, I think you're on mute.
Anybody?
I got a couple. Yeah, I got a couple.
Okay, Peter, go ahead. Floor is yours.
Okay, Chief, quite a few months ago, when you were having problems with paramedics, we came up with a different plan to entice them. And at that time, I'm pretty sure you said that plan was working. And we are also doing a lot of calls into neighbors, especially Manchester. Now, you've adjusted that, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question. So yeah, we did make an adjustment to entice some of those paramedics, and those people are still here. So in addition to our full-time members, and as far as the mutual aid calls to Manchester, yeah, I did make an adjustments operationally to reduce some of those calls into the city.
So how did that reduce our calls overall? Do you know?
With regards to mutual aid number calls?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have an exact number for you. I did look at how many calls we do on a month-to-month basis with regards to how many mutual calls we go on versus how many receive. And it's really close to a 1-to-1 ratio, and I'll be happy to send that to you.
Okay. So the paramedic deal that we made out when we started looking, change our rate of pay, that worked out for us. So that now is contributing to the full-time 24/7 force? Or
Absolutely.
are those people included in that 24/7?
So they are included. If you remember, we have 4 full-time people working 24/7, and then we augment that with 2 part-time people to get us to the 6th number. So in those 2 part-time positions, there are paramedics in there.
All right, thank you. That's all I wanted.
That's all you have, Peter?
Yep.
Okay. Any other members of the board? Questions for Chief Allard?
Nope. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Please go ahead, Chet.
I'd make a motion to move forward with transition to a long-term 24/7 schedule at the fire department, subject to negotiating a mutually agreeable schedule in the form of a sidebar agreement on this issue only, in accordance with Article 14.3.3 of the current CBA between the town and the professional firefighters of Goffstown.
I'll second that.
Thank you for the motion, Chet, and thank you for the second, Peter. Any discussion on the motion?
I would,
No.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep, go ahead.
I would hope that Selectman Lemay would recuse himself as he is a part-time firefighter there.
I am.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, I'm gonna call the roll on the motion then. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Abstain.
Thank you. Where did I leave off? Chet?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 4-0, one abstention.
Thank you all very much.
Yep, thank you, Chief. Thank you for the good work. Thank all of your staff and for all the good work they've done to bring these numbers down and provide good service to the town and its citizens. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I'll make sure they know.
Thank you. We need to get back to the town administrator's report. We left off with, I think we're at item D, the sports complex.
Sure.
Derek, I believe.
Mr. Chairman, we're actually at tab 9C, so I've got those 3 pages.
Yep, okay.
So
Thank
if you
you.
go to the last page of that, tab 9, assessor's recommendations, the town assessor recommends the following. This is report of timber cut and timber tax warrant for map 4, lot 44, map 10, lot 24, map 5, lot 70, map 1, lot 15-2, map 8, lot 58, and map 4, lot 50.
Thank you, Derek.
Motion to approve the assessor's recommendation is presented.
Motion made by
Second.
Mark, second by Peter. Any discussion on the motion? I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Chet?
Yes.
Thank you. Next is item D now, the Sports Complex Tree Bid Award.
Yes, you have a recommendation from the Department of Public Works, Eric Gustafson, the engineering technician. You may recall about a month ago, maybe a little bit more, they put out bids for the trees plantings as well as the berm there. There were, if you go to the next page, they received 4 timely bids. There was one bid that came in after the timeline. They contacted us by email a few minutes before it started, and we do not allow email submission. So they did drive it up and drop it off. So we have not opened those, but DPW and Parks and Rec, as well as the Parks and Rec Commission, are recommending awarding the bid to Knott's Land Care.
Need a motion for that, Derek? Is that what you're looking for?
Adam, do you have anything you want to add to it? Adam?
I think Derek got the high points pretty well. Eric did perform some background checks with some clients of Knott's, and they had good reviews. And from what little I know of the company, they've had good reviews too. So
Great.
I'll make the motion.
Budget.
I'll make the motion, we approve the contract to Knott's Land Care to install the trees.
I'll second.
Motion by Peter, second by Kelly. Any discussion on that motion? Do a roll call. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Chet?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0-0. I'm impressed nobody slipped and referred to it as Knott's Landing, but that was very good. Because I did it more than once. Okay, next is
Tab 9E.
9E. Yep.
This is a joint use agreement between the town of Goffstown and Eversource. This is really to use the land that is under the transmission lines that run over that section. So this is again a joint use agreement. This was put together and again comes from Eric Gustafson over at DPW. So we'd be looking for a motion to approve as presented and allow the chair to sign all 3 copies.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Peter.
Has this gone through the town attorney?
This has not gone through the town attorney.
So should we wait to approve this until it does go through the town attorney? Would that be the appropriate thing to do?
I don't think we have typically sent these types of joint use agreements to the town council in the past. If it's the board's pleasure, we can start that process.
So is this copied from something else?
Adam, you want to weigh in?
Yes, sure. Thank you. So this is the primary reason for this document is it kind of relaxes Eversource's restrictions upon us. So they're giving up some of their rights, albeit, within the confines of what they're saying we can do there. But in this case, we're not giving up anything. They actually could tell us we could do nothing underneath those power lines if they wanted to, based on their original easement. About 5 or 6 years ago, we met with some folks at Eversource when this project was being proposed through the AOT permit, and they said, okay, down the road, once you're ready to go, we're going to need to have one of these in writing. But they gave us a rough framework of what they wanted in the easement area and what they wanted outside the easement area. So in this case, they're giving up some of their rights. If certainly could send it to town council, but I think where it's we're not really getting anything, or not giving anything, I should say, away. We're the recipient in this case of some ability here. I think it might just be money thrown out the window if we do.
So they're
My concern, yeah, okay, but my concern is what happens if something comes up and they say, we have to pull it, we can't do anything, we have to do something different. We have something protecting us for that.
It's a fair point. One of the big things that they are restricting us is no permanent structures. I think the biggest concern would be is if down the road they say for some reason we couldn't have a parking area there. That's the biggest encroachment on our behalf. So certainly if you don't have a parking area, it's hard to have an athletic field, but we do have some room outside the easement area that we could do that, I suppose, if push came to shove. But if it is a concern, I think it'd be a pretty quick review for an attorney.
I'm not trying to spend town money, believe me. I want to make sure our butt's covered, that's all.
How about other members of the board want to weigh in on this? What are your thoughts? Think it's
Collis?
Yep, go ahead, Mark.
So I just heard Adam say no permanent fixtures allowed. What about the buildings we're going to put on the premises? What would happen to those? Didn't we making a couple of small sheds or small areas down there in the plan, as I remember?
That's right, sir. They are requiring us to have that outside their power line easement. So it will be on the parcel, but it just can't be underneath the lines.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. It's a big piece of property.
As far as parking goes, Eversource typically doesn't have a problem with the power lines. In fact, it's less maintenance for them within their easements. So at least that's been my experience with them.
Another one of their big concerns is fencing. So any longitudinal fencing, you have to be real careful about where it's placed, how it's run, and if it's grounded or not, since you can induce some current. So there's some language in there about that.
Other members of the board?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you. Adam, the number 15 talks about an H2 load rating. Eversource is not responsible for damage to improperly installed subsurface systems within the easement. Is that just something that they add to this, or are there any plans for us to do anything like that?
I have to defer to the plan. I believe there are a couple of culvert pipes that would be through the easement area, so those would normally be a load rated item anyway. But
Okay.
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember if they run through it or just by it.
How about sprinkler systems?
Yeah.
Or near it. So, a question, Adam, are they talking about subsurface systems in general, or are they talking about subsurface disposal systems, septic systems, which in many cases are designed for H20 loading?
I believe that this is in reference to anything below surface, so drainage, stormwater, any kind
Culverts,
of water lines or anything.
I have one more question. Does this impact in any way insurance or any kind of coverage that we need to have it says they're not responsible for damage, so I'm just wondering if we need to be prepared for something to go wrong.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah,
Are we
that one, I
helping
think, I don't believe, Derek or Rick could correct me if I'm wrong. I do not believe Primex has had a chop. So that may be a worthwhile pit stop for this.
Yeah,
We can do that.
There's just a couple things where they negate any responsibility for if they come onto the easement and have issues. So I just want to make sure, as Peter mentioned, that our butts are covered. So I'd like to know the answer to that question, please.
that's a good question, Kelly. I think that's worth investigating, Derek.
May I make I don't know if you need a motion, but I'd like to continue this until we get a little bit more information.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We'll table this until the next meeting. Put it on the next agenda meeting, Derek, and see what you can find out for us.
Yes, sir. We'll work with the Primex and the town council on that.
Okay, thank you. Now we're at item F, which is the road tracking form.
Yes, this is a road tracking form for a turnaround easement to the town of Goffstown. This is for Campbell Court. This was a lot line adjustment that was approved by the planning board earlier this year in February. And again, this was a requirement, this turnaround easement was a requirement of that plan. You have the language of the quitclaim deed, as well as a picture showing where that turnaround easement actually is.
This has got some history to it, right? 2004, a non-residential site plan that was signed by the planning board.
Yes, and I believe this was a cleanup item when it went through the planning board process when they did the lot line adjustment.
I see. That's how we picked it up.
There was the lot line adjustment was to incorporate more of the garage, I believe, or that building where it wasn't before, and then we required a turnaround in there, so. I think it's all set, right?
Yeah, it looks like they eliminated a lot line and then, wow, font's kind of small.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the yellow is the newly adjusted lot lines.
Yes, and then that square shows where the turnaround easement will be, because again, the town maintains Campbell Court, so this is for the town to be able to turn around.
Yeah, and it's gone through the necessary planning board.
Yes, this is coming over from the planning office.
Yep. Questions from the board?
You need a motion on the quitclaim?
Yep,
I'll make a motion. I'll make the motion that we approve the turnaround, the quitclaim.
Thank you, Peter.
I'll second that.
Second by, was it Chet?
No, me, Mark.
Mark, okay, thank you, Mark.
Yes.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the quitclaim deed? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Chet?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0-0. Next.
9G, you have another road tracking form. This is for a temporary license and indemnification agreement between the town and McDonald's. McDonald's is revamping their site, and they have gone to the planning board and got all the necessary approvals. They wanted to connect a concrete ADA sidewalk from their parking lot to provide access into the building, and it goes through the town right of way. So again, this has been through the planning board and was approved as part of their site plan review. And this would be a temporary improvement if the town need to remove it within the town right of way.
Thank you. Questions for Derek on this item? This is a temporary license.
Make a motion, we approve.
I'll second.
Temporary license and indemnification agreement between the town of Goffstown and McDonald's USA. Motion was by Peter and a second by Chet. Did I have that
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Thank you.
I think, and the chairman will be signing that, Derek?
Yes, actually, the entire board
Yep.
will sign that. So what I will do is I can send that out electronically for everyone to sign.
Great. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Chet?
Yes.
Motion passes 500. Thank you. And then,
The last item under the town administrator's report is a recommendation from the finance director on a tax anticipation note. And I'll let Danielle speak to that.
that's 9H, right?
Yep.
Yep. Danielle, floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm here to discuss the potential need for a tax anticipation note. This is something that the town of Goffstown has not had to ever take out. It would be a short-term bond if needed for cash flow purposes to maintain operations and meet the obligations of the town, as well as those other groups that the town collects taxes on behalf of, such as the school. This tax anticipation note is something that I'm looking for approval to move forward on if it is needed. The recommendation I have before you tonight is for essentially a tax anticipation note line of credit, which would mean that the town would be allowed to borrow up to a set amount. I have listed or recommended that amount to be 5 million, not to exceed 5 million. And that would be something that we would be able to draw on if needed to meet the cash flow and then repay when taxes come in. At this point in time, there's a lot of variables and questions around the unknown factors that were presented with COVID, with so much of the population being out of work. It's not something that we've ever encountered before, and typically we're able to use our investment account or the funds that were held from previous collections until we collect the new round of taxes. However, that account gets very low this time of year while we're waiting for revenues to come in. And the concern was that if the revenues do not come in as they normally do, if they're delayed even by a month or two, we could be in a difficult position cash-wise. So that is what you see before you here, and I'm available to answer any questions or elaborate on anything that you see in your packet.
I have questions.
So Danielle, I see 4 options that are listed. Can you just touch on those quickly?
Sure. The bank that we were looking to use, so we discussed with the 3 local banks in town, and the bank that we're recommending has provided 4 different options. Their options are primarily whether or not we were to get a tax exempt note or a note that would be subject to taxes. Now, the town does not pay taxes, so this is whether or not the bank would be subject to pay taxes on any interest they collect from us. And so there are different rates that you see based on whether or not they can get that exemption from the IRS, and that is based on what the town's legal counsel provides in their legal opinion, which they have to write in order for the bank to accept a tax anticipation note. So those are really the 4 different rates you're seeing there are interest rates based on how much we take out, whether we take out a lump sum or whether we take out the line of credit, and whether or not that borrowing would be subject to taxes.
Peter, did I hear you?
Yeah, first of all, we have borrowed money before for this purpose. It wasn't, we got it from the sewer department, and we borrowed it from them. And I don't know what their financial situation is now, but we have borrowed money for this situation before. I don't think we called it a pan, but we did borrow money. And I think if it's available, we should hit that up again. And then, Danielle, it says that the cost could possibly be offset with the Gopher funds. Or Gopher grant. Now, when you say the cost, is that just the cost that's associated with the document fees or also the interest?
Yes, so to address both those items, yes, the town did borrow once. When I stated that the town has not borrowed under a TAN, that was specifically because we did not use the provisions under RSA 33.7, which is the tax anticipation note RSAs. So that is something that would be new. The borrowing that happened with the sewer commission could be an option. However, we would have to discuss that with them and their planned liquidity and projects. They do not have an excess of funds as far as that would be able to necessarily match the in and out needs of a TAN revolving account. But that would be something we could discuss further with the commission if you'd like to explore it. As for the costs, it's all of the costs associated with the TAN. So if there's any document fees, any legal fees needed to get the legal opinion, as well as any interest amounts, those would all be covered by the Gopher funds if we were to borrow funds under a TAN and needed to return, the monies back once we collect the taxes.
So is there a limit on the Gopher funds that are available out there?
The limit is the total amount that was assigned. I'm sure you recall a few weeks back, the board had voted to accept the funds. The amount accepted on behalf of the town was around $430,000. And we have through the end of August to submit reimbursement against those funds. So if the TAN were to be borrowed in October, we would not necessarily have the ability to repay that through the Gopher funds.
And how much of the Gopher funds have been assigned so far of that 430,000?
We have not yet made our submission to Gopher. However, what we have collected and gathered together is less than 100,000 that we are looking to submit to Gopher. A lot of it depends on whether or not funding comes through under the FEMA public assistance grant. If it does, then only 25% of the public assistance monies can be submitted to Gopher. So as of right now, the amounts we're looking to submit to Gopher just under 100,000.
So just to summarize what you said, if we were to borrow that money, technically with Gopher, it wouldn't cost us anything. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Well, then it's pretty simple for me. If that's in fact going to happen.
And my proposal was to go with the line of credit option because it can take some time to get this in place with the legal needs as well as the needs that we have to meet for the financial institution. And if taxes come in like normal and we don't need to take it out, then we don't have to spend anything. And therefore we wouldn't be wasting those Gopher funds. However, since it does take a few weeks to get everything in place, the concern was if we wait until July and then we need to start the process, we may be, too late or be running short on time in order to get those funds borrowed and reimbursed.
This isn't just tax funds you're talking about, it's also fee funds that we have through the tax clerk's office.
That's correct.
Town clerk's office.
Yes, that's correct. Any revenues that the town would normally collect, if we are short and in need of the cash flow, we could borrow against this account and then repay it when those funds come in, whether it's funds from grants, funds from the state, funds from taxes is the biggest one, or revenues from departments.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but off the top of your head, do you know approximately how much or how far behind we are in collecting fees?
So at this point in time, we're actually doing pretty well. The town clerk's office was a little lower than the projected amount since March due to the withholding of the processing for new vehicles. However, that has been catching up. And our tax collections, we've only seen about 1 week of tax collections. And at this point, it's only short by about $20,000 of where we were last year. So if it continues at that pace, which we would consider to be our normal collection rate, then there wouldn't be a need for the line of credit and we wouldn't actually go through with the closing or borrow the funds. But if it's slows down, if people are unable to make those payments that normally come in later in June or July, that's where we'd start to see the gap and we could get into trouble later in the summer.
Okay, thank you. And I would have a question for Derek also, if I could.
Go ahead, Peter.
Derek, you wouldn't anticipate using any of this money, because you had talked about, or the board had talked about, cutting some things out of CIP in order to make up. Would we still consider that, or is that, if we borrow this money, it's carte blanche again?
No, I think the only purpose for a tax anticipation note is really a cash flow to get us through when we have low cash flow. Because again, we collect on behalf of the town as well as the county and the school. So the school does have payments that they have to make in July and August. So they will be, we do disperse to them in July and August. So this is not, whether you authorize this or not, this does not impact how much the town actually spends of its annual appropriation. It's really to allow us to have sufficient cash flow to pay our bills and to disperse to the school. The county, we don't disperse till December.
But the numbers sound encouraging, at least to this point.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, right now, yes, the town clerk is, the last couple of months have been down, but when Danielle and I estimated those revenues last year with Kathy Ball, those are very conservative estimates. So we are right at where we should be for 5 months of the year.
One more thing, Derek. When you take a TAN, does that affect your bond rating?
Well, the town doesn't currently have its own bond rating. We go through the municipal bond bank. And maybe Danielle, I know Danielle knows a lot more about that than I do, but we don't get our own bond rating like Manchester or maybe Bedford does. We participate in more of a group effort when we need to bond. Traditionally, Goffstown has gone through the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank. Yeah, and they sell all those at the same time. They have twice, I think it's twice a year they sell those bonds off.
That's correct, Derek.
So you're rated as a group, so we don't have individual rating.
Okay, thank you.
Others on the board, comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a few questions, please.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Thank you. Sorry, you answered my question just for operating costs and cash flow. Can I just request that we make this a running update for us, kind of where we are with collections of things in the next month or so?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
we
it's a
will
good
do that.
idea that we keep close tabs on
Thank
the.
you. Yeah, because I mean, I do think this is a good idea. We're applying for the anticipation of the note, but as we need to go in, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you would come to us and request that we take out a specific amount, or is this to give then the finance director, the town administrator, the ability to just take an amount if we were to be approved? I just want to know the logistics of how this would work. Would you come to us and request it? If so, I want to be kept up to date as much as possible as to where our cash flow is weekly or whatnot.
So
I can speak to that if you'd like. The attorney has recommended, so the motion you received this afternoon does authorize the finance director and the town administrator to take the action as needed for the withdrawals against the note up to the $5 million credit limit. And we envision that if that were to occur, if that motion were to go forward, that's really just for ease of operations. We would anticipate notifying the board at each scheduled meeting if there is any draw against that note, with the regular reports of the cash flow showing why we felt there was a need for a draw at that time. It's just really to make sure that we don't have to run into an issue where we can't make payroll or pay the school because we have to wait for the next board meeting if it's every other week.
Okay, and if we were to pull a specific amount, let's say then we ran into the same issue, if we take another draw from that, does that impact interest rates? Does that add any fees or anything like that? Or is it kind of a rolling draw you can pull?
Yep, so the one I'm recommending is a rolling count. So this revolving line of credit would not have any additional fees at each draw. We would just take the draws as needed. The interest rate would be a fixed rate determined at the time of closing. So once underwriting reviews all of the application, they would determine what that fixed rate would be. And their currently market rates are between 2.4% and 3.35%. So it would be a fixed rate all the way through the end of the year, and the funds, any funds drawn would have to be paid back by the end of the year. But in the meantime, while we hold the funds, we only have to make payment on the interest each month. And that would be something we could choose. If we wanted to, we could choose to make no payments or make partial principal payments and interest payments. But the recommendation from the industry, the folks I've spoken with, as well as the bond council, is that you'd want to make your just regular monthly interest payments, which would be subject to reimbursement through Gopher through the end of August.
Kelly, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, please. So Danielle, you had mentioned the Gopher grant and that the interest and, additional document fees and whatnot would be eligible under Gopher. I'm sorry if I missed this, but did you mention when is our cutoff to apply for Gopher reimbursement? So if this is on a rolling basis, can we ensure that this stuff gets reimbursed, or is it just kind of situational at this point?
Sure. So there are multiple dates to submit for Gopher funds. The Gopher grants are, there's 3 different sets of dates, and look at the date here. So the funds are to be expended through August 31st, and the final submission is due on September 15th. So we could incur any costs through August 31st, and then we'd have until the 15th for that final submission.
Okay, thank you.
So Danielle, I'm sorry, Carlos, is it okay if I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Peter, please.
So just on what you said, Danielle, if we went with the rolling request, so anything we were to borrow after those dates, we would have to pay the interest on, is that correct?
That's correct. If we did borrow funds specifically in September through that last quarter of the year, we would be paying those funds unless there was a different program that came about, or unless the Gopher program was extended in some way. Then otherwise we would be paying the interest for those months, September to the end of December. However, based on the revenue projections, we would expect that more revenues would be coming in by that date. And we would hopefully not be in a position where we need to continue drawing that late into the year.
So would it be your plan? I got 2 things. So would it be your plan to use these funds first before our regular funds? That way you would be putting money, anything you collected between now and say August 30th into the bank that you could spend after that amount, and then spend your off of that credit line before that. Does that make sense to what I'm saying?
It does make sense. There is an option for us to do that. However, our plan was not to preemptively borrow the funds. At this point, to give you an idea, that investment account has only $2.3 million in it. And for regular operations and disbursements, including the school funds, the transfers to the school average between $2 and $3 million a month. So that $2.3 million doesn't get us really very far. It's about 1 month's worth or less. So if the revenues did not come in at all, or if they were short, that's where we would see drawing those funds. If the board wanted to, we could borrow funds in advance and kind of hold on to them for that, like if we knew a payment was coming in September, but the interest is due for any time that the money is not paid back to the bank. So if we're still holding funds in September, we would still have interest at that point in time.
Okay, that's kind of not what I was saying. I was saying, let's say we have in July, a 2 million to the school, and then in August, a 2 million to the school. If we borrowed those funds and anything we collected in those months, we saved to use in the September, October area, wouldn't that be advantageous to us instead of using the monies we're collecting as we go along? If it's free money, and I'm not saying it's free money, I'm saying it's not costing us anything.
So again, what it comes down to is when the funds are repaid. So if we had borrowed money and we didn't repay it back to the bank by August 31st, we would still be paying interest on those funds. So even if we borrow the 2 million in July and then we collect 2 million and we don't pay it back to the bank until September, we're just paying that interest in July and August until we repay them in September.
Yeah,
So yes, we could do that.
Typical of many loans. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, go ahead. There was one more question I was going to ask, but go ahead. I'm good.
Peter, you still have the floor, Peter, if you got another question.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Any other board members? Somebody prepared to make a motion?
I got one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
One more thing. I'm sorry, Danielle, but you
No
said
problem.
you said that you didn't want to have to wait for the board every couple of weeks to make a decision. Whereas we're having meetings now online, and a meeting can actually be called in 24 hours to conduct that kind of business. And feel more comfortable, me personally, I feel more comfortable having a little bit of knowledge of when we're taking money and when we're not. But that's just me. It's up to the rest of the board.
No, I agree with you, Peter. I'd like to see some sort of a mechanism for routine updating where we are, what we borrowed, what's being used for, what a repayment.
Can I suggest that we involve the chair and perhaps if we need to, call a special meeting if we get to the point where we have to borrow? I think Danielle and I were just concerned that this is a process that takes 2 to 3 weeks. We don't want to wait to a point where we're behind the 8 ball. So what we'd like to do is get a motion and maybe subject to any disbursements from the revolving line of credit, communicating then that in a specially called select board meeting, something to that effect. But we'd like to move forward with it so we don't get behind the 8 ball should property tax payments and motor vehicle payments not come in as they typically do. We currently have a $20 million tax warrant that is being collected, and about 40% is paid by escrow companies. So this is really I guess to protect the town. Danielle's been working on this in case we need it, but this is not, it's not what we would prefer to do, but these are times that are completely different than any other year.
Yeah, I personally like that approach. I think that's both reasonable and responsible, but others, please weigh in.
Derek, I think what I heard you saying is you were looking for a motion tonight to authorize you and Danielle to apply for this. And when it comes to disbursement, you would contact the Board of Selectmen, and either with a special meeting or at a regular meeting for the disbursement of those funds. Is that what I'm hearing?
That was my understanding, Peter.
The motion that was provided to you this afternoon was to vote to authorize a $5 million tax anticipation note for fiscal year 2020 be approved in the form presented in this meeting. And that would be, you'd be authorizing the town treasurer and the town administrator to arrange with the financial institution to do this. under RSA 33.7. Again, that is in the page that we sent to you. Alternatively, we can work with bond counsel and have a special meeting next Monday and see if there's any alternative language. Again, it's not Danielle's and our, I guess, intention to do this, but we don't want to get to a point where we're cash poor and we've got to make a disbursement to the school. I know that Danielle did meet with the school district this morning and they did revise their disbursement schedule. So there was, she's been working on that end as well.
Maybe you misunderstood what I said. I think I'm doing the same thing as what you're asking. The only caveat that I'm saying is before any of those funds is spent, go ahead, get the loan, go through that process, you and Danielle, and go through the council or whatever we have to do to get approved for that $5 million. But before it's expended, that there's either at a regular scheduled meeting or a specially called meeting to discuss it, the expenditures of those funds with the board. Carlos, is that what you were kind of thinking?
That's what I was understanding.
Okay, that's the way I would vote for that.
Peter, just a point of clarification to make sure I understand. You're saying before the funds are expended, not specifically before the funds are withdrawn?
Well,
Or
you can't.
both?
You wouldn't withdraw the funds if you're not going to spend them, right?
Hope not.
Well, it's a rolling account. You're gonna withdraw the funds when you need to spend them.
Yeah, it's a line of credit.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, that's just the way it works. I wouldn't want you to go ahead and say, okay, I'm taking out this $2 million, and you come to the board said, geez, did you really, do it that way? I'd rather say, geez, did you really do that way? Try this, and then take what you need, if that makes more sense.
Yep.
And that's just my idea, and I think Carlos agrees with me, but I don't know what the rest of the board thinks.
Well, I think it's more transparent that way.
Absolutely.
You want to make a motion, Peter?
Yeah, I'll make that motion. I make a motion that we allow the town administrator and the finance director to apply for a $5 million line of credit called a TAN, and to contact or
Sign necessary documents.
Yes, sign necessary documents and go with the Board of Selectmen before expenditure. How's that?
I'll second that.
It's a second from Mark.
Correct.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Is everybody clear on the motion?
Or the intent of the motion?
Yep. One last opportunity. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. I'll vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Chet?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0-0 with those modifications as we discussed.
Thank you.
Next, department head updates. Let's start with Chief Allard. You already addressed the board earlier. Is there anything else you want to add as far as the fire department or EOC?
Yes, I'm just waiting for my video. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yep.
I have a few things. On the emergency management side, which we still have our EOC in operation, we continue to monitor the local and national information on COVID-19. As everyone probably realizes, that's very difficult keeping up with because it seems to be changing day to day. The EOC group seems to be doing well trying to keep up with that. The state has, I just checked the numbers before it came back live, nearly 5,000 cases and over 275 deaths have occurred. Right now, the fire department's working with local businesses as they try to reopen. And as many of you probably know, restaurants have outdoor seating now. And next week, that's going to change where they can do indoor seating at 50% occupancy. So we're going to work with the planning department, and businesses have any questions, they can reach out to us and we'll guide them through the documents that were released at the end of last week. On the fire department side, we currently have no apparatus out of service. We continue to respond to all calls, and the call volume's actually increased over the last few weeks. Our employee evaluations are underway internally. We hope to have all of those completed by mid-June. I did a CIP presentation last Thursday. That's been presented. And finally, the last thing I have is our ambulance has finally arrived. And it's hoping to be in service tomorrow. Please keep your fingers crossed for me, because this has been a challenge. But I'm happy to say that it'll be in service tomorrow. And that's all I have.
What was creating the challenges, Chief, with the ambulance?
What?
I don't know if we have enough time.
Okay.
There were several. In fairness, we decided to go from a remount to buying a new pacing compartment, and it just. And then there was many salespeople changing.
Okay. Circumstances beyond your control, I guess.
Yeah, I'm hoping the next one goes smoother. Otherwise, I'm going to have even more gray hair.
Can I ask the chief a question? And it's only because it's a question that I get constantly, and I'm sure everybody else is. You see on the news, Goffstown seems to be really high. And I don't know if you get to see those, if you see those numbers. Those change again every day. Is it mainly the county farm that's causing Goffstown's numbers to be so high? I shouldn't say county farm. I'm an old-time resident. The Hillsborough County Nursing Home.
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's a good clarification for the community, because I get asked that question often. And I think, like most communities that have long-term care facilities in town, you'll see a larger number in those communities. And that's certainly what we're seeing here in town. So yes, to answer your question, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Chief, or any questions for Chief Allard? Now, how about Chief Serino? How about Police Department?
I'm here. Thank you. If I could just address the board in the community, I released a statement earlier today regarding the kind of the civil unrest we're seeing in the communities across the nation, and the unfortunate situation that happened in Minnesota. I just wanted to let the community know as a whole that the Goffstown Police Department kind of condemns what we saw and are appalled by what happened in Minnesota. My statement's released on our Facebook page, so if anybody wants to see that, they can read it. If anybody has any questions for me or want to talk about ways to improve our operation or our community, I'm always willing to listen and think of and hear what people have to say. But to update on our department, we are all healthy and we're doing well, which is good. We still are operating under a modified plan. I want to correct my spelling mistake there. It's a typo, but we are on a modified plan. We are still just trying to handle non-emergency calls via the phone as much as we can. It seems to be working both well for us and the community. I will continue to reiterate that this will not be the way we handle our business once this pandemic kind of moves forward. We will be going back to in-person calls for everything, but right now the small stuff is still being dealt with over the phone. We are experiencing just a very small few employees who are dealing with a hardship with the children at home that are learning from home. There's nobody to watch the kids. So what we've done is a very small few still have the ability to work remotely from home. So we've made the decision that we can have them work from home as well as, help with their family life. But also if they need to work later in the evenings, we've been working that out. Most of these employees that we're seeing that have this hardship are the salary employees. So it's working out pretty well for us. The building, as we know, it still is closed to the outside. Any of the groups that usually use it, we're kind of still taking that precaution of not letting everybody in there. The lobby is still wide open for the public to come, get any kind of paperwork they need. All the other services that we provide are still there, and they always have been. So that's pretty much our update for right now.
Thank you, Chief. Adam, DPW, have anything you want to add? You touched on some issues. Do you have anything to share with the board?
Sir, maybe just a couple of small things. I know we had the traffic announcement earlier tonight. That's a big one for this coming week. We've got that sinkhole that opened up last weekend on Wallace Road. So we're going to try to get that pipe replaced. It's 12-inch corrugated. I believe it's 12-inch anyway. That developed the hole. So we're going to get that swapped out this week. Last week primarily was getting back to full strength, getting Shirley Hill continued. That was phase one, portions of phase one that weren't wrapped up last year. We still have a bit of phase one work on Shirley Hill, the intersection of Wallace itself. We've got some more shaping there to do. So some of that pavement's going to get trimmed back and try to ease those joints a little bit, still a little bit rough as you come in. The other thing, the major thing for Shirley Hill phase one is a box culvert that needs a similar repair to the culvert further down. That was left last year. We're gonna have to get back into that one. We've also got on the phase two section about 3 crossings I think that need to be done kind of in advance. So right now the next week and a half, 2 weeks are going to be spent trying to catch up on work orders. We've got a little bit of a backlog on some pothole repairs, that sort of thing, shouldering, some lingering plow damage that just we're able to wait, but we don't want those to get completely fallen off the map. So we're going to try to get into those a little bit, which also buys me a little bit of time to plus back up. As we mentioned a few times in the past, we're down, I think, 5 full-time staff right now. So I'd like to give me a couple weeks to get those postings to do their magic and hopefully get some new folks coming in. That way we're not shutting down Shirley Hill to be at a 3/4 or a 2/3 strength staff over there. So I really don't want to shut it down until we can hit it really hard. So we're going to be hitting some of those other work orders. The line striping contract's begun for the year. We've also done some of our in-house striping crosswalks and stop bars in the village areas. So you'll see those continue on. Line stripers have been in. We don't want to forget, we've got some credit with our contractor from last year from some of the striping that didn't hold up so well in I think it was an early morning dew / rain situation. We didn't want to front load that work sort of in respect for the situation that we find ourselves in. And folks other than the town also have cash flow issues, I think, right now. So we didn't want to have to put a contractor out here with a bunch of free work right out of the gate in the spring. So we're going to save some mileage for them, and they'll be able to come back in a little bit later in the season to get that done. Bless you. Other than that, the mowing contractor should be fired up here by the end of the month. And early word from the paving contractor, assuming they don't get held up with weather in their first couple jobs, they might even be in town next week to get us started on some of our shim and overlay roads that we're going to have. So hopefully winding up pretty quick here.
So the transfer station's not still under siege?
That's a big one. Yes, it's crazy. It's slowed right down here this week with the fees going back to normal. So thanks for that. And thanks on behalf of the employees. They all pass along their thank yous.
We got a couple of questions.
Go ahead, sir.
I know Mash Road is in one foot. It's not yours, but do you have any idea of the project and how long that's going to take? Where the states out there working? Are you in any contact with them?
I don't. I certainly can. Shame on me for not having a beat on that. I'll see if I can get an update from them. They had a bumper meeting that got canceled, and I lost track of whether or not they've held the second one or not. So yeah, they've got probably in the 6 figures worth of guardrail work. Notice a few crossings, but I can't tell you what their schedule is for making it black just yet. So I'll try to bird dog that answer for the next meeting.
And maybe just pass it on so we can get it out to people so they know what's going on. That's the main plot. And then Henry Bridge, how are we on that? All done? How much longer?
It's not going to be too much longer. We've got a little bit of an announcement coming out tomorrow just for the folks since it's been a bit. We didn't actually share all the good news officially with our too many of our friends down there in the neighborhood. The main section of the project is done, so that we were able to accomplish it without any major closures there. The bridge was lifted about a 1/4 inch, got the seats reset and placed back down on the new bearings. Tomorrow we are actually meeting the on-call engineer consultant there to take a look at the repointing that's needed on the southern abutment. There was a plan for about 150 lineal feet of repointing in between the granite blocks, but that's sort of a rough estimate. We wanted to kind of get on the ground, and that can change, of course, over the course of a few months, and certainly with spring thaws and frost. So we're going to get in there and see if that number is increased at all. We may have a small change order if we're going to have them, do the repointing that's needed. This is the time to do it. I don't want to only do what we had initially if it's grown at all, the repointing area, and then have to come back and do it at a later date. So I'll come to you if it's significant, of course, but we'll find out that tomorrow with them as we kind of do a site walk together. But otherwise, they'll be in, their plan is to come in Thursday with their repointing crew. And then I believe that is the majority of the remaining work. So we're pretty well wrapped up over there.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Anything else from the board for Adam? Thank you, Adam. Derek, how about town administration? How's things?
Things are good here. Last week we had all remote employees report back to work. Prior to that, we had been working in weekly rotations, 1 week in town hall, 1 week working remotely. So last Monday, everyone was back in at town hall. And then we made the final adjustments for preparing to open to the public. And today we reopened to the public. Our hours are slightly reduced from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. We shaved 1 hour off at the end of the day. The amount of online mail and Dropbox transactions that the town clerk is seeing, they simply need that time at the end of the day to really focus on those and to get back to respond to emails and voicemails as well. So we don't anticipate that will, that is just a temporary, we anticipate that's a temporary measure. So hopefully we won't have to go much longer with that, but there were quite a few people in at town hall, at tax collectors, as well as the town clerk. Everyone was very patient, and the residents have been great through this little bump in the road. Finance continues to work on the audit and working with all the departments on COVID reimbursement. Also last week, the detailed guidance for the September primary and November general election, we started getting information out of the Secretary of State's office on use of absentee ballots and remote absentee registrations. So I'll be working with the town clerk and the election officials and Selectman Georgianis as we develop a plan for the September primaries and everything that needs to go into that. Planning has been very busy with CIP has started up, and St. Anselm College will be before the planning board this week to propose modular housing units. There'll be a temporary solution for 1 to 2 years for the students to come back onto campus. So they're making a presentation. I know that application came in really quick and took a real quick review, but yep. So everybody's back in. Everybody's healthy right now and working to get back up to where we can be working 8 to 4 and serving the public.
Thanks, Derek. Any questions for Derek on town hall operations?
I'll give you guys an update on St. A's and what's going on with that. They needed, due to social distancing and the others, they needed to add some housing in there. So they came to the board and they came to the planning department and they needed to expedite this. And this is what the planning department has done, and the planning board has diligently worked with them. And Thursday night, we should be able to get the okay. And what they're looking at doing is that it was 3 years that they actually wanted to have these buildings up, but they need to know right away. So it's going to take, it's modular housing. They're going to put it way out in the back where it's been before. They've done this before, and they made a commitment then to 3 years, and then they tore them. They did take them right down. So the board's pretty much inclined to help and work with them, as they are the largest taxpayers in town. So we're gonna do whatever we can to help them out, providing everything's above board as far as safety wise. So that's the plan on that. So go ahead, I'm sorry. Derek had brought it up, so I just wanted to mention it.
Good. No, thanks for that update, Pete. Anything else for Derek? Let's see. Parks and Rec. Rick, are you on?
Rick was on earlier. There are copies of the May 20th meeting in your packet. I will just go a little bit beyond that, and I know that Chairman Adams might be able to talk to it as well. I participated in the Parks and Rec Commission meeting last week. After the Emergency Operations Center met with Rick as the Parks and Rec Director, we had a long discussion about summer camps and the guidance that came down from the state. Many of the isolation procedures and consideration for what we would do with campers during periods of inclement weather simply did not make summer camp a possibility. So on Wednesday, we informed the Parks and Rec commissioners and answered questions for them of that, and we had made that announcement on Thursday that summer camps are canceled. We continue to discuss with the EOC and with Rick whether or not municipal pools will be an option. We are still, right now, municipal pools are closed as they would be normally. But we're going to continue to monitor any guidance that comes out of the state about specific to their use, as well as any changes to the stay-at-home order and the state of emergency, to see if there is a way. And the Parks and Rec Commission next meets on Tuesday, the 16th. So they meet next Tuesday, and I anticipate that we'll be closer to having to make a decision on the pools.
Can I add to that just a little bit, Derek?
Yes.
The members of the EOC did meet over at Barnard Park, and we looked at the pools. And as Derek said, the decision was not made. But Rick also told us that it would only take him 3 to 5 days to get the pools up and ready to use. So it wasn't that if we get the okay to go, that it was going to take a month to set it up. I think if we get the okay to use the pools, I think Rick can have them up in a week and be ready to go. I think that's an important part of the scenario. Once we get the word, and a week later, we actually could be using this.
Yeah, I think we can certainly get them up and operating quick enough. Some of the logistical issues, a little unclear on how we could handle that, but yeah, they decided not to take any action to see what's going to happen, just sort of play it by ear. So that things do change and there is further recommendations and guidance that comes down from the governor's office, we'd be in a position to open them quickly if things line up.
And
it takes a lot for them to line up. Really
Yeah,
does.
sure does. Oh, believe me. Presented an option for how to do it, and how to space, and how to check people in and out. It was extremely convoluted and hard to see how we're going to maintain all of the CDC recommendations as far as social distancing and those sorts of things. So it was really complex. It was a long discussion at the meeting.
And Mr. Chairman, Rick has jumped back on the call, so I don't know if he had anything to add. I kind of clued him in about the meeting last week, Rick.
Hey, Rick.
I don't think my sound, am I working?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, everything you guys said, right up to par. We, as I told too, the other thing is the city of Concord has shut down their pool for the summer. Manchester has shut down their pools. Bedford is still undecided as to whether or not they will open their pools or not. So the summer camp to me was a real tough decision. But as Derek summed it up really good, it's the inclement weather piece. Just only be able to take 20 kids. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work for us, unfortunately. And I hope folks understand that. We'll try to figure something out. I don't know if we can. Aaron and I have been kind of thinking about different things you can do. You know, do you take the amateur sports guidelines that are set out there for 10 people at a time? Maybe we can do some sign up during the summer just to give the kids something to do. I don't know. We're kind of trying to figure something out with that. But the Goffstown Gallop this year, that is going
Rick, Rick, can I just follow on with the pool issue? So one of the issues that we talked about as well is that, you know, if it's a stinking hot summer, people are going to be looking for places to get into the water, which means there's going to be a lot more pressure on Glen Lake and then the waterfront down there. In fact, social media was lit up pretty good today with all the people that were down there and requests for Goffstown Police Department to go down and clear out the folks who weren't town residents. And then to complicate matters further, I saw a story tonight about how the fact that Department of Environmental Services will no longer be sampling public bathing places like Glen Lake. The town would have to do it on their own, and the state would still analyze the sample, but they would not collect the sample. The town would have to collect it, get it up to the state for analysis. So that whole thing continues to get more complicated as time goes on.
Whose job's that gonna be? Let's just get this right out right now. Let's put it in somebody's hands that it's done so nobody gets sick.
So in the past, the health officer, who's also our building inspector, before DES took over that testing and they had that testing program, the health officer would go down. They know how to take the sample and drop it off for the results. And the health officer has brought that up, and we started talking about that today at town hall. So I anticipate that we are going to continue testing and bringing those samples to the state so we can have it analyzed, and it would be the health officer that does that.
Once a week? How often, Derek?
I don't believe the state was doing it once a week. But we would follow the same frequency that the state of New Hampshire did last year.
So Derek, if the samples do exceed the recommended levels of, for instance, E. coli, who's going to have the authority to shut down the waterfront? Will it be the town or will it be the state, you know?
It'd be the health officer. When the state does that testing, they alert the health officer. The health officer will post it, and then the state will come down the next day to retest so that they can get it all clear. So it's basically the only thing that's changing is the health officer has to spend time to actually go collect the sample, and we have to have somebody deliver it to one of the approved testing facilities.
And we can do that without affecting other operations?
Yes, we will make that happen because we do know that the impact that has.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other board members have questions on that issue? Okay, thank you. Let's see, library. Is Diane with us?
I think, Mr. Chairman, I think
Rick's not done.
Oh, Rick, I'm sorry.
Oh, you left me hanging.
Oh, that's right. You're going on to Goffstown Gallop.
Oh, the pressure. I've been waiting an hour and 40 minutes. No, I'm only kidding. Just to let you know, too, the Goffstown Gallop is going to be a virtual event this year. So we got that all ready to go. People will go through our Rec Desk account. We kind of starting to promote that via through Facebook, through the emails that we have. So that will be going. So you might see people running the actual Gallop course. They have that choice if they so choose. It'll be like June 20th to June 28th over a week's time. Or they can run it in Florida, wherever they are. We actually have 3 people from Florida at this time already signed up. So, so anyhow, that'll be going. We're working on doing all the refunds for our summer camp participants. And hopefully that'll be going out to the greater community the week of June 22nd by the time we get it all formalized and then sent over to you guys for the final okay. Staff wise, all 3 of us are doing fine. Mike and I are pretty darn busy. All the athletic fields, all the 11 athletic fields that are irrigated in town, they're getting mowed once a week. They're no longer getting mowed twice, 3 times a week. So they're getting mowed once a week. All the schools, the property of the schools, they're going to get mowed every 2 weeks. Library, That one's a once a week town common area. That's a once to maybe every other week type of thing. So we're kind of getting a little pattern going as far as how we're going to attack the mowing side of stuff. So we're all doing pretty good. Thank you.
You all set, Rick?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Don't want to cut you off a second time. Thank you, Rick. Any questions for Rick? So I saw something in here from the library. Diane, is she joining us? Diane, are you there? Kelly, do you have anything to share with her? By the way, I love the menu format. I thought it was very imaginative and pretty cool.
Yeah, I can share a quick update on behalf of the library. So they are in their first phase of reopening to the public, and as of today, they're accepting returned materials through the book drop, and those will be quarantined for 72 hours. So that started today. And on the 15th, they'll be entering phase 2, which is going to include pickup from the parking lot for materials for people. Collis, as you mentioned, they've included for us their takeout menu, which is very creative, and they'll be sharing that soon. You can go in and kind of look for different options, and they'll be facilitating pickup functionality. So that's been fun for them to be thinking about, as they've also been talking about their summer experience. As you know, that's the library's busiest time of the year. They've had to scrap all of those plans and switch gears and find a way to make it virtual. So they are in planning mode, and they'll be doing summer experience things virtually. That'll be coming out soon. I think that's it. Any questions for the? I'm not sure I can answer them, but I can try.
Thanks for the update, Kelly. Appreciate it. Pass along our thanks to Diane and her staff for doing such a great job, at least providing some services for folks to just provide some distraction from the craziness.
They are very busy, so I will let them know.
Thank you. Am I missing anybody? Seems like I'm missing something, but doesn't come to the top of my head. Any other department reports to share? Seeing none. Select board discussion. Any new business or old business, Derek, that we need to be aware of? I don't see any.
The only, I would say, major change other than vehicles, I did want to make the board aware on the action matrix. The town was awarded, and the select board voted to accept a grant from the New Hampshire State Council for the Arts. As you may recall, this was a grant for the restoration and preservation of hand-painted curtains at Grassmere Town Hall. We're currently working with the New Hampshire State Council of the Arts to push those funds back and use those in 2021, which they have indicated they will allow. The curtain restoration specialist is out of Vermont, and with the restrictions with traveling, as well as some of the uncertainty of lodging, we just feel it's better to push that back to next spring.
Okay.
Paul, if I get something I'd like to bring up.
Sure.
I noticed as we're going through the bills, more and more businesses local were taken from Goffstown and moving them to other places. And I don't know if we need to make a policy or suggest that whenever possible, that we try to use people, businesses in town that do the same thing. I think that's important, that we support our businesses before we go someplace else. I don't know how we do that. I don't know if it needs to be made a policy, but you know, I would rather spend $5 more and support my Goffstown businesses versus other towns. And there are things that we're doing and that are being done out of town. That makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you, Pete. I think a lot of people would support that same sentiment. The question is, how do you go about doing that other than just encouraging folks to, you know, patronize local businesses and use them whenever possible?
If it's all right with the board, I can put on the meeting on the 22nd, June 22nd, bring the purchasing policy back to the board to see if there are any changes or amendments that you'd like to make, and I can highlight the provisions that are currently in there for when a local town vendor is the preferred vendor, and we can have I guess, a more robust discussion on the 22nd.
Yep, that's a good idea. Let's do that, Derek.
Okay.
That's fine.
Mr. Chair,
It's just
I have a question on that.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I think that's a great idea, but I think to Peter's point, there are currently services for different things that we're using constantly, and I wonder if the department heads or whoever's managing those bills or purchasing for those departments could potentially find comparable Goffstown businesses. Perhaps they request, can you match these same services at this cost or something along those lines? Can we make an effort to find comparable businesses and services in town? So not just, RFPs, but current stuff that we're doing.
I support those efforts, but I think the proper place to start is the purchasing policy and what it looks like right now. And do we need to revisit it and modify it in some way? I think that's a good first step. And of course,
I agree.
work with
I'm good
EDC.
I'm good with that. I've noticed that some businesses, and I specifically have moved out of Goffstown and into a neighboring town, and we're still using them. And I don't see why we're not trying to local source if possible.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to be the next meeting.
Let's start with the policy, see if it needs to be revisited and modified in any way.
Well, we have the authority to fix that policy.
Sure we do. Of course we do, but let's revisit and take a look at it. Okay, what else is on there with the grants? Yeah, we already did that one. The vehicles, looks like we're in good shape there. Eric. Anything on the vehicles or equipment, Derek, that?
No, I think you've got there, the vehicles indicated by DPW and police department.
Okay. One thing I've mentioned in the past I'd like to see on the action matrix is there is a growing interest in reconnecting our community from both sides of the river, specifically where the old railroad bridge used to be. I spoke with a lot of people, a lot of businesses. There seems to be a lot of enthusiasm there. There's a lot of people who seem to be interested in helping with this and move this forward, providing their expertise. Of course, it's a big project, take a lot of money, need a lot of fundraising among other issues. But I would like to see it on the action matrix so that we can move this forward. And I think the first step would be to establish an ad hoc committee to start looking at this, the feasibility of this and what it would take and various parts of the puzzle that would need to come together to make this happen. And again, I see more and more interest in this on social media and people that I talk to around town, from businesses and interesting residents who are willing to, like I say, dedicate their talents and I assume some of their money even to help move this forward. So I'd like to see it on the action matrix so that we can perhaps keep this effort moving forward.
Okay.
Collins, could I suggest?
Oh, wait a minute, Peter, and then I think I heard Kelly. Peter and then Kelly?
Yeah, Collins, could I suggest putting the, setting up the ad hoc committee on the action matrix? I think putting the actual bridge on the action matrix would be there for years and years because it's not something that's going to happen in the next year.
No.
I think maybe putting the ad hoc committee, assembling that on it, and then go from there.
Yeah, that was my intent. If I didn't articulate it, that's the first step. Set up an ad hoc committee to investigate it.
I agree.
Who was that, Mark?
No, that was me.
Oh.
But I do
had a
agree.
question as well, please.
Is that Kelly?
Yes.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Thanks. So I wonder just generally, is this a board prerogative or is this something that we could task the EDC with or perhaps include them? I think my thought process was more as well, putting it on the action matrix may take some time, or is this a place where it could potentially be included in the master plan? I've only heard this come up once, so I just want to kind of think through who should be involved in the mapping out of what this looks like.
But again, I think when we look at establishing the ad hoc committee, I think there's a number of places you turn to. One of them certainly would be the EDC, certainly the rail trail folks, all of the town departments, fire, police. I think it's a good, yeah, go ahead. Is that Peter?
This is Peter.
Yeah.
I know somebody who's just got off of an ad hoc committee and that's all done. Maybe that person should take on that project, which was you.
Oh, I'd be happy to.
I mean, you were on the ad hoc committee for Glen Lake.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
and that's pretty much finished up, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we just got to follow up on the recommendations, which are pretty straightforward.
So
Yeah,
I would, that's kind of a thing that you would like to do, I know, so I would recommend that.
If that's the board's wishes, I can at least keep a watchful eye on it and on the process of it. So I'd be happy to take that on.
That's my recommendation.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this was one of the select board goals under economic development to create the Village Piscataquag River pedestrian bridge. And step one was to create an ad hoc committee. So what I can do for your meeting on the 22nd is to develop a draft ad hoc charter with mission objectives, and you can discuss that further on the 22nd.
We already have a selectman's rep for that board, so
Okay,
let's
great.
just move on from there.
Yep.
Right, Collis?
Yep. Thanks, Derek. To make sure I wasn't just dreaming that up in my head somewhere.
Yeah, those are on your goals, and I think when you adopted those goals, we decided that we would review those at one meeting, so it wouldn't necessarily be in the action matrix, but I will include the goals and the status update on the 22nd of where you stand with those goals, and at that point you can decide if you want to assign any out further from there.
Okay, sounds great. Anything else on the action matrix? If not, I want to call for a second public comment opportunity before we end our public session and go into non-public. Any last old new business action matrix items? None. Okay, so
Motion to go into non-public?
wait a minute. Let me just ask for a second public comment, Peter. Is
I thought
anybody?
you already did it. I'm sorry you
I
did.
didn't ask Derek if he saw anybody on the phone or.
There is nobody on the phone, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. All righty, Peter.
Motion to go into non-public on RSA 91-A:3, 2, A, promotion, B, hiring, and D, realty.
Thank you. Motion by Peter to go into non-public.
I'll second that.
Second by Mark. Call the roll. I vote yes. Kelly?
Yes.
Peter?
Yep.
Mark?
Yes.
And Chet?
Yes.
Okay, the motion is unanimous, 5-0-0. We will end our public portion of the meeting tonight as we go into non-public. I want to thank folks who are listening and participating tonight. Please stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy. Good night.